Their creativity and perseverance not only bring bumper harvests, but also contribute to enhancing the value of Japanese agricultural products in the international market. Let's explore how Japanese farmers produce valuable agricultural products. Udo is divided into Yama Udo and Nanka Udo, edible plant native to various regions of Japan. It has been used as a spring dish since ancient times. Thousands of tons of agricultural products. Udo is a however, the appearance is contradictory. While Nanka Udo is white, Yama Udo is green and looks white. Both grow from early spring to about April that average 60 to 90 centimeters. Yama Udo consists of thick, fleshy, upright and 2 to 5 centimeters in diameter. These differences in appearance correlate with the environment in which they grow. Despite its ability to grow to large size, meanwhile, Nanka Udo is grown through the softening agriculture. Yama Udo is still harvested seasonally because of its young and tender stems, which shields them from sunlight. After 30 to 40 days, Udo is only about 1 meter high. Harvesting underground is very difficult. Peak harvest season is usually from December to April, when it reaches a height of about 70 centimeters. Because the area planted with Udo trees, because their work requires constant squatting, many farmers suffer from leg and back problems. Another person was waiting on the ground to lift the wooden box. Farmers carefully cut the Udo and wrapped it to take it out of the tunnel. Timing is important after harvest because Udo will quickly turn when exposed to sunlight, so that Udo was less affected by the weather. Therefore, farmers gradually switched to growing and harvesting indoors. The Udo growing industry in Takikawa quickly became very popular. Udo's flavor changes the image of wild vegetables. But for Udo, it can even be eaten raw, and achieved high yields of about 450 tons per year. People are often concerned about the it has a crunchy sound and a faint sweetness spreads in your mouth. The fresh and refreshing taste lingers afterward. That's why this plant became Takikawa's specialty. When you bite into a piece of freshly harvested Udo. Now let's visit Kasumigura, the second largest lake in Japan, proud to have the highest lotus root production in Japan. The land along the lake is fertile and has abundant water to help lotus roots through lake water are cut off to prevent the lotus from growing further. Lotus roots around Kasumigura Lake are harvested from July to March. Every year at harvest time, all lotus stems and leaves may have different flavors, depending on the time. This means that lotus roots harvested in the same lake area and gradually accumulate starch from summer to winter. Lotus roots grow underground, dormant. It becomes more flexible as the sugar content turns into starch. The mud made traveling difficult, and finding lotus will taste as sweet as pears. Farmers continue harvesting until May, when the harvest. Young summer lotus dig out the entire lotus root. Farmers said it takes patience and good technique. Was certainly not an easy task, because lotus roots may not grow straight in the costs about $2.8 USD to be able to sell them at a good price. On average, each kilogram of lotus, farmers must be gentle and not while they dug into the mud to find lotus roots. The lotus field is about 50 to 60 centimeters deep. The farmers had to kneel in the water up to their chest. They use water jets to search for lotus roots. By careful processes are not only delicious, their whiteness and appearance and go through the washing process many times from being damaged. Lotus roots transported. This is also a way to prevent the skin of the and shipped within 2 days of receiving farmers' orders. At Renkon Sankyo Day, the lotus roots are cut off and canned one by one to their value. after being transported to the processing facility about 10 to 20 centimeters in diameter, creating optimal growing conditions for the shiitake mushroom with the most delicious mushrooms. Have you ever seen millions of shiitake mushrooms growing in the forest? Besides lotus root, Japan is also the farmers carefully select oak trees, then brought to the shiitake mushroom grower. Next, farmers will drill small holes to implant shiitake mushroom embryos to begin their growth process. Oak wood is neatly set. The mushroom embryo is implanted into the hole using a special. These holes are drilled about 10 to 15 apart depending on the size of the shiitake mushrooms to ensure the shiitake embryo is in. Each log will yield 2 to 4 times more shiitake mushrooms depending on hole size and weather conditions, at the correct position and depth. After the shiitake mushroom embryos are transplanted into the log to ensure a harvest. Japanese people often go into the. They are placed in suitable positions to wait for the shiitake mushrooms to grow. Harvesting is done by hand, with farmers care and harvest each tree by hand. They use plastic baskets to store finished products, pulling the shiitake mushrooms out of the logs and preserve to prevent damage. When full, they will go to the place where the mushrooms are for local communities in Japan and nutritional value. Growing wild shiitake mushrooms provides economic opportunity. The slow growth process and natural habitat of shiitake mushrooms give them a dense texture, rich flavor, accounting for 50 to 55% output at a relatively high price. Each year, only a limited amount of natural shiitake mushrooms can be harvested. In the southern provinces of Japan, shiitake mushrooms are grown the most in the country, while exported dried shiitake mushrooms are even more expensive. Upon arrival at the drying factory, that's why fresh shiitake mushrooms have. The shiitake mushrooms are inspected again. Remove water from the shiitake mushrooms, including appropriate temperature and time to remove unsuitable plants. Next, remove the soil and arrange them evenly together. The drying process takes place under strict control. This mushroom has been used for thousands of years. At the same time, it still retains flavor and nutrients. Japan is also famous for lingzi mushrooms. In addition to delicious shiitake mushrooms, the logs were inoculated with Ganoderma mushrooms in traditional medicine to treat health. After felling the tree, the log rested 2 weeks before being drilled. One log can withstand the growth of 15 Ganoderma mushrooms. But after a few months, when the lingzi mushroom has fully developed, to complete the entire process of creating Ganoderma mushrooms, it takes 9 months before you can see buried underground. Farmers take a long time. Compared to shiitake mushrooms, the magic of Ganoderma mushrooms comes from the compounds locked inside its cell walls. Wondering what makes it different from the millions of other mushrooms growing in the forest? It can be harvested and processed in many different ways. Mushrooms have a slower growth rate. Farmers have to wait 70 to 90 days to harvest. Interestingly, the yield is proportional. For example, a 6-inch diameter log will grow to each 1-inch diameter of the tree until the first harvest. As the lingzi mushroom matures, it's to turn reddish brown and the spores fall off the cap mushrooms in about 6 years. This means that larger diameter logs will take longer. Mature Ganoderma mushrooms are 1 to 4 inches thick. They tend to choose Ganoderma mushrooms with white bellies. They have started to decompose. Harvesting, because when harvested late, if they turn brown, when farmers pluck Ganoderma mushrooms, will be dried at temperatures below 50 degrees. After washing with water, the Ganoderma by holding the root with one hand and pulling up with the other. Depending on the variety, they are ready to harvest. Nutrients. After 70 to 115 days from planting, cabbage is a healthy food and rich. Finally, we visit cabbage fields in Japan. If it is not possible to harvest immediately, the base of the cabbage will be 4 to 6 inches across. Smaller heads of cabbage can continue to grow for the next harvest. The head of cabbage should be firm, compact, with tightly wrapped outer leaves. Farmers use a knife to cut the head of cabbage from the stem, leaving a few leaves on the outside to protect the cabbage during storage, which can help maintain freshness and flavor. Farmers often harvest in cool weather. Cabbage moves along a conveyor belt. On large commercial cabbage farms, harvesting is done through automated machines attached to tractors. These machines lift the entire tree out and waits for transport to the warehouse for storage. Farmers continue to remove damaged outer leaves. Farmers are operating machinery. After that, the cabbage is loaded into containers it through cabbage fields to systematically harvest. Depending on the size and quantity of the machine, it can harvest multiple rows of cabbage simultaneously, which greatly reduces the amount of labor required to harvest by hand. From banana orchards in Thailand to apple fields in Japan, as dawn breaks across Asian fields, the fruit harvest appears like a vivid painting. Now, let's visit fruit orchards. To see how Asian farmers harvest millions of tons of fruit. The apple orchard begins to bear fruit from the 7th or 8th year. Fruit yield will increase gradually each year and then remain stable for 30 to 35 years. However, it all depends on the selected variety. Acres of apple trees. Total production reached 94,600. A farm in Japan has an area of 114,000, bringing in revenue of about 1,003 that helps increase people's income and promote the rapid development of the local economy. 16 million USD. The apple industry has become a pillar in. First of all, farmers will determine the optimal ripeness for picking. Correct ripeness is not only important for quality, but also for successful preservation. Picking fruit early is often both inefficient and expensive. When apples are during storage, they bruise easily and shrink. Farmers will climb ladders or use support tools to carefully pick each apple. In Asia are often harvested by hand. This is an extremely labor-intensive, accompanied by the participation of a significant that predominates in the production of dessert apples. It appears mainly in large fruit orchards to ensure the job is completed. Farmers handle apples as gently as seasonal workers. On average, an apple orchard needs about 10 to 12 harvesting workers an egg. They carefully placed all the apples in the picking box. This is the only way to prevent the fruit from being. Do not drop the fruit or jostle it during transportation before being distributed to the market. The harvest usually lasts until late October. Once harvest and sales are complete, at the processing site, apples are graded based on size, and fresh apples are usually available in early November. The production cycle begins again. Stored in cold storage or humidity to remove dirt and pesticides. And quality. Apples are in environment to retain freshness longer. Inside the spiky shell is a sweetness. Have you ever tasted the taste of durian? Now let's explore how farmers harvest this unique fruit. With a characteristic strong smell. When durians ripen, their spines turn from yellow-brown to dark brown, peaking in July and August. Durian season in Malaysia usually lasts from May to September. When durians mature, a spot on their stem will allowing them to naturally fall off the transportation or long-term storage. However, durian harvested at this stage is not suitable. Farmers often tie strings to the durian. That is also the reason why durians can fall at any time. This is to help prevent the fruit from to ensure that farmers can collect fallen durians immediately matured. When the durian strings to each durian fruit, when it is professional durian farms off ground and damaging the durian's thorns, lower the fruit and harvest. Ripens and falls from the tree branch, the immediately wraps tightly around the durian fruit, preventing the durian fruit from falling to the ground and being damaged. At this time, farmers can care. At the beginning and end of the harvest season, durian is usually harvested only once during this period. After being picked, they have to go through a series of processes before reaching you. Because the garden's productivity is relevant for further classification, durians are quickly transported to the collection center because once durian fruits rub against its thick skin and rough appearance, durian is not suitable for rough transportation, susceptible to pathogens. Besides conventional preservation, fresh durian can be quickly frozen by exposing them. The durian spines will break and be 18 degrees Celsius for 2 years, still retaining its original flavor, color, texture. Liquid nitrogen. Frozen durian can be stored at for its vibrant color, exotic appearance, and potential health benefits. Dragon fruit is famous with its growing popularity in domestic and international markets. Dragon fruit cultivation offers can begin to bear fruit 12 to 15 opportunities for farmers and meets growing and environmental conditions. Dragon fruit tree demand, depending on the dragon fruit, is quite short. Only a month after flowering, farmers can enter the harvest season. To flower in May to June. The growth after planting. Each year, dragon fruit, similar to other fruits, dragon fruits also pay great attention to harvest time, risk of spoilage of the fruit. Because ripeness will affect the quality outside of the skin have begun to wither. At the same time, when pressed, the fruit deflates slightly. The skin has a bright color, and the scale. Farmers choose fruit that is not fully ripe or has turned pink and be harvested with scissors or a knife. Just need to gently separate the fruit from the stem. Besides, dragon picking is also quite simple, to a place that can avoid sunlight before packing or storage. Early morning, the harvested fruit is immediately transferred. Cool afternoon is the appropriate time to harvest to avoid hot direct sunlight. Increases the temperature in the fruit. If stored in optimal conditions, usually at 10 degrees Celsius, dragon fruit will retain its for up to 17 days. Now let's go to banana garden in Thailand. When the bananas mature, farmers place pads between the banana bunches. Goodbye dragon fruit garden to protect them from bumps and bruises. Eggs to repel insects. Bananas are ready to be harvested. Bananas are always harvested by hand with 2-person team. Then the bananas are wrapped in cloth or plastic. About 10 to 13 weeks after the plant flowers, a person will use a knife to cut the banana bunch from the stem, who work well together. At this point, the chamber is lowered onto the person's shoulder pad. To move bunches of bananas to processing farms in the delta can use a cable cast. Along the cable, it can damage the fruit. If the bananas are pulled to a bunch of bananas out of the bunch, then these bananas are placed in a water to remove the pus. Finally, bananas are grated. A small, sharp knife is used. Each box is guaranteed to have a net weight of 13 kilograms in cardboard boxes with plastic lining when released to the market. According to size and quality, bananas are packaged whole and Now we go to the pineapple field of about 2.7 million tons of. This is the leading country with a production of Philippines. To see how farmers harvest millions of pineapples. Apple growing area is estimated to be over 40,000 hectares. Apples per year. The country has 32 months for a pineapple to mature. Under good sunny conditions, it takes 8 Prolonged cold and freezing temperatures at a temperature of 28 degrees slow the ripening process and make the fruit acidic. Even pineapple will be seriously damaged. However, size and color changes are not reliable indicators of ripeness. Choosing the right time to harvest will affect the entire because pineapple is a fruit that does not continue to ripen after harvest. Pineapples are not ready to ripen until most of the fruit has turned orange-yellow. Millions of pineapples will be picked before harvesting of pineapple products. Every year, about 3,200 workers flock to pineapple farms in Indonesia to harvest. After harvesting, pineapples will be sent to factories that need to carefully prepare protective gear and gloves for packaging or processing into other because the sawtooth-like leaves can hurt them. Pineapples, such as canned pineapples and